Park. So. And if I haven't met you, I'm Sally. I'm our business development and marketing coordinator here at Zephyr Health, and been here over 5 years. So if I haven't met you, it's rare, but it's a special group. It's a special place. We do lots of different things, as you know, and this is one of them. So lifestyle team, Denise and Joy. Denise is our coordinator. She and I have worked well together. I'm so excited that she's in this role. It's really bringing a lot of life into this lifestyle team, and we're hoping to have a lot more events like this. So thank you and welcome. And if you have any wants or needs, I'm happy to help. So I'll be in the background while they give this great presentation, and I'll let them get after it. So, thank you guys.
All right, so today's topic is on brain health, and specifically we're going to be talking about some conditions such as cognitive decline, Alzheimer's, dementia, leaky brain, Parkinson's, but there's lots of different brain conditions, maybe one that I did not mention here. All of what we're talking about relates to these conditions. And I shared in an email, and I'm not sure if everyone saw it, but every 3 seconds, someone is being diagnosed with a cognitive decline. And we're finding that Alzheimer is now the #6 reason for death, above breast cancer and prostate cancer combined. So it's a big deal, right? And so we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to help prevent, to slow down the decline, and maybe even reverse signs of cognitive decline. So I have this sheet here. Mine looks a little different because I have some notes on it, but we're going to talk about some of the causes. And these are not the only causes. These are the primary causes. The first one that I mentioned here is toxins. And we have toxins in the environment, but there are some toxins that are super dangerous for the brain. Mercury is one of the number 1 toxin that causes damage in the brain. Neural pathways, neuropathy is affected by mercury. And so heavy metals are now crossing, we know they can cross the blood-brain barrier, and they're affecting our brain in a negative way. Mercury poisoning has similar traits to dementia. It messes with your ability to problem solve, to plan. It slows down the processing. And so a lot of times that mercury poisoning is confused as dementia or Alzheimer's. And so you want to look at how you might be getting toxins into your life. There could be some mercury in your fillings, right? Yeah, and there's mercury in other places in the environment that we need to watch for. We also want to look at some of the other heavy metals like aluminum. And so if you're using aluminum foil or you're cooking on aluminum, these are other heavy metals that can cross the blood-brain barrier and affect the health of our brain. Other toxins could be phthalates, parabens. If you're drinking water that has toxins inside of it, maybe there's something inside your water, such as fluoride or other chemicals, lead, mold. Mold is the toxin that we need to worry about. Glyphosate. Glyphosate is the killer, weed killer that's inside our Roundup, and so that could affect the brain. So lots of different ways that we get toxins in our environment. Your deodorant. If you're not eating organic food, you're getting toxins inside there. So when you're looking at keeping the brain healthy, we want to consider toxins in our environment. Another toxin might be EMF. And so these frequencies, they're subtle and we may not be aware of them. Some of us have more sensitivities to EMFs. And this is dirty electricity that might be coming out. It could be from the internet, different waves that can affect our nervous system and cause some fatigue on the body and affect the brain. Stress, one of the #1 reasons why our body is not healing is because of the stress that we're feeling. Stress can come from eating foods that are not organic, and that causes stress on the body. Stress can be your perception of life. Stress can be toxins in the environment. So there's lots of ways that stress comes at us. Past trauma will affect your brain health. And this is physical trauma that I'm talking about right here. So physical trauma could be like a head injury if you were in sports and you used to play like soccer or football and you hit your head. That's going to affect you now. So you might have thought that you healed, but it's going to be affecting your brain's ability to ward off some of these other stressors that we talked about, including toxins. Yes, Sparky.
Pollution. Pollution's a big thing now.
Pollution, yes. Typically, our body is pretty strong and it can ward this off, but we have so much going on that it makes it hard for the body. We also are looking at trauma affecting our ability to become more sensitive to these toxins. So if you had a head injury when you were young, it's going to affect your ability to process these toxins in the environment. And so it may also raise inflammation in the brain. So think about when you were young, maybe you hit your head and you thought, if that's done, that happened when I was 10, 15, 20, it could still be affecting getting dementia. Lack of sleep, your body heals when you sleep. In our society, love the go, 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 go. We actually praise people. Go down, the more you get done. But the only time your body heals is when you actually go into that rest and digest. And that happens when you're sleeping. And so if we're compromising sleep, then we're compromising the health of the brain. There are some genetics that are related to Alzheimer's and dementia. You may have a gene that makes you more susceptible. Doesn't guarantee that you will have concerns with Alzheimer's. It does mean that you're more susceptible and you have to be more aware of what you're eating, more aware of your lifestyle, more aware of toxins in your environment. Lack of exercise. And so we're going to get a little bit further into how powerful exercise is to help the brain. But if exercise is good to strengthen the brain, lack of exercise then hurts the brain. So if you live a sedentary lifestyle, where your pastime is watching Netflix, that's going to affect the health of your brain. Poor diet, and Joy's going to talk a lot about diet. Diet is an area that you have so much control over. And what you eat is definitely related to the health of your body. One of the areas that we look at here is inflammation. Inflammation is related to heart disease, also related to leaky gut. And now we're finding that if you have a leaky gut, you also have leaky brain, right? These infections, this inflammation doesn't only affect one part of the body, it's usually throughout the body. And so we'll look at our diet and how that affects your health. Glucose spikes is associated to cognitive decline. So go back to the diet. If you're eating foods that are high in processed sugars, your glucose spikes. If you're eating foods such as starchy foods or carbohydrates, your glucose spikes. Our bodies were never meant to have like these high spikes because then you have this low drop. We're right here in the middle. This is our balanced body. But we eat something and our glucose spikes up and then it drops down. This is oxidating to the body. This is really hard on the brain. So our goal is to stay pretty balanced. And so you want to look at how your body is responding to glucose. And there's different ways that we can help you with that. Inflammation, I talked a little bit, inflammation in the body is directly linked to the health of the brain. And so if we have inflammation, and it could be something like an infection that keeps returning, that infection is showing that you have inflammation in your body, which means the brain is probably also inflamed. This is going to be linked to cognitive decline, dementia, Alzheimer's, leaky brain.
Autoimmune issues.
Yes. You'll find that as you start coming to our training, we say a lot of the same thing. Work on inflammation, right? Work on inflammation, and a lot of this is what will start to alleviate. And when you look at inflammation, what's often is associated as obesity. And so if you're overweight, your body is fighting hard to be healthy. And so that might be associated to lack of exercise, it could be associated to diet, could be genetics, but obesity is associated to inflammation. Also, there's a direct link between obesity and Alzheimer's. So we want to have a healthy weight. And so we want to look at your weight. Hormones, just like glucose spikes, hormones are messages sent in the body. And if our hormones are misfiring, and they could misfire because of inflammation, they could misfire because of obesity, they could misfire because of diet, all of that is stress on the body, and that affects the brain. I want to talk a little bit about ACEs, the Adverse Childhood Events Study. This was done back in the 70s by Kaiser Permanente, a hospital program in California, where they looked at the adverse events of individuals as adults. They looked at the events in their childhood. So if as a child, maybe your parents were separated or they had a divorce, or maybe in your home, your parents were fighting, or maybe there was sexual abuse, or maybe you moved a lot, maybe there wasn't food in your home. What the research found that if you had an adverse childhood event, as an adult, you were more apt to have diabetes, cancer, it could be asthma. They kind of represent differently in your body. Now we're finding that these adverse events weaken your brain's ability to ward off some of these other conditions. And so when you look at trying to keep the brain healthy, if you had adverse childhood events, you have to work harder, right? So you have just a little bit tougher time. So when you look at people that are eating a horrible diet, they're doing everything wrong and they're fine. So that difference might be genetic, or it might be because when you were a child, you had events in your life. So you have to work a little harder. And so what we're finding is the study looked at some very specific items like divorce. But we're looking at now that these traumas look a little different. It could be racism. If you've ever suffered someone judging you, if you've had trauma such as being bullied, these traumas affect us all differently. And they will affect your ability to be able to have a strong brain and to be able to ward off some of the other conditions that might be from the environment, such as toxins or lack of sleep or something else that we're not doing, like we're not eating and not exercising. So you want to take those into consideration. They add just a little more inflammation in the brain and a little more stress on the body. If you are using stimulants, drugs, alcohol, that's hard on the brain, right? And so if you want to have a strong, healthy brain, you want to consider not also indulging in alcohol or drugs or other stimulants. Stimulants could be coffee, caffeine, right? You know, and we're not going to sit here and tell you what you should and shouldn't do. But when you're looking at your health, you get to make decisions. This is empowering you. You get to make choices, right?
I know, yeah, but I understand everything you're saying, but you don't want to demonize all these foods either.
Now,
Like, there's so many studies on caffeine that says caffeine is also, in a certain amount, is good for you.
Yes.
A small amount of alcohol is also a little good for you. So, you know, I feel like sometimes there has to be a balance, so all these things don't get too demonized.
and so, yeah, so when we look at this, you make choices, right? We're giving you information to empower you. So if you're looking at like the glucose spikes, right? If you notice your glucose spikes up when you drink alcohol, maybe for you, that's not a good choice. Maybe that's not what's happening with you. Maybe caffeine is a benefit for your body. Maybe you like that your body does better, right? So really we're looking at individualizing so that, I mean, it's true. Life is about living, right? And we don't want to feel like we're like having to let go or suffer or like, you know, deprive ourselves. But if you have dementia, Alzheimer's, different conditions in your family history, these are considerations, right? So
When we do the nutrition classes, we talk about the 80-20 rule. So 80% of the time you make good choices, healthy choices, whole food, plant-based, lots of fiber, lots of vitamins and minerals. The 20% of the time is when you have that slice of birthday cake or your glass of wine, whatever is your particular indulgence. And then that way you're keeping things in balance and your body's not having to fight off all of these things that are causing inflammation all the time.
It's like life has gotten, you know, when our bodies were developed, we didn't have all of this environmental toxins that we're having to work with. And so we have to be strategic about how we find balance. And so I'll do a few more things that are causes, and they're not the only causes, but these are some pretty common ones. Multiple infections. So if you have infections all the time, like you have infection in your gum, this infection, especially in the mouth, is highly related to brain concerns. Anytime, like if you had a root canal, often that root canal probably maybe wasn't cleaned out all the way, and you might have a low infection, like a low grade infection that's been going on. That infection directly links to the brain. And so we want to watch that they wouldn't have infections that constantly are returning, because that infection is high inflammation and it's really working hard for the body to have that equilibrium, affects the brain. Also damaged mitochondria. So the mitochondria, those of you that were in biology, with high school biology, you learned about the Krebs cycle, right? The mitochondria is our powerhouses. It is like the core of our cells that gives us energy. If your mitochondria is trying to take care of toxins, if your mitochondria is trying to take care of glucose spikes, if your mitochondria is trying to take care of misfirings in the body, it's not making the energy that the body needs to live life. So you want healthy mitochondria. And so we take care of ourselves by feeding ourselves. And we do that either through eating healthy, exercising the body, taking, good supplements or herbs. And so those are some concerns. So if you're looking at your lifestyle, these are some areas that you might want to consider if you want to have a healthy brain. But there's lots of solutions, right? So this is about finding solutions. So reduce the inflammation in your body. Reduce your inflammation by staying healthy, eating healthy, taking supplements, taking herbs, not doing the things that cause inflammation in the body. And the number one way that you can do that is through diet. Exercise. Exercise is one of the best things you can do for your brain. I don't have the back sheet, but if you look on the back sheet of the page, you'll see a diagram of the brain. The biggest area that's affected is the part that's affected in our motor health. So one of the best things you could do for your brain is to move your body. And we're going to do some exercises today to help with that. You want to reduce stress. So think about how stress is coming into your life and what can you do to help reduce that. Prioritize sleep. That's when your body heals, right? So try to find a way to get sleep on the top of your list of self-care. Maintain healthy weight, because we talked about obesity being connected to Alzheimer's. There are some great herbs that help with dementia, Alzheimer's, and cognitive decline. I'll share those. Balance your blood sugar. You can do that through diet. There's also some great practices that you can do. You can change the order of how you eat. You can do some tricks like apple cider vinegar. There's lots of ways that you can balance blood sugar. And then there's some things that you can do, dancing, finding joy, positive anticipation. So thinking that something is going to be good shifts your mind to help the brain be healthier. Finding hobbies, some supplements. Now, Vessel Health has their own line of supplements, and their supplements are a different grade of supplements than what you would find like at Natural Grocers or Sprouts. They're designed to be highly absorbed. And we have Neuromag, we have quercetin, we have turmeric, which reduces inflammation. Omega-3 is excellent. The brain is full of fat, and you want good, healthy fat in order for the brain to have that connection. Omega-3 helps with that. It also reduces inflammation in the body. We'll look at being engaged in life, increasing your social interactions, learning a new skill, a new language, playing a sport, increasing the BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And so that's something that the body makes naturally, and it enhances the health of the brain. And we do that through movement and through diet. And then a big one here at the end is detoxing. So if we are worried about toxins in our environment, you can actually rid the body of these toxins through a detox to help bring health back into the body. All right, so I'm going to share some fun activities and some ways that we can help the brain. Some helping herbs: turmeric, reverse all, you can say that right. Broccoli sprouts. Broccoli sprouts are amazing for the brain. Green juice. Green juice actually brings the pH back into the body, so you're alkalized, and it helps the brain. Matcha, quercetin, magnesium, ginkgo, medicinal mushrooms, CoQ10. There is a research that shows that coconut oil can reduce Alzheimer's. Omega-3, and these, creatine helps the mitochondria, so does bacopa, blueberries, spinach, berberine. Also some other practices. So we're going to do some practices. A couple of practices that we can do is to support the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve brings you into parasympathetic, which then allows the body to calms the nervous system, allowing the body to heal. Some other great practices are yoga, tai chi, EFT or tapping, those of you that have taken tapping with me, NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, cognitive behavior therapy, hypnosis. Yeah.
What area of the brain specifically is exercise?
So I don't have my chart on here, but it's the big chunk of the brain in there. And so I don't have the chart, but you'll see. So the frontal lobe is problem solving, but you can see in here, so it helps with the movement in specific parts of the body. And so, yeah.
So exercise, okay, good.
All right, so we're gonna do some activity. On Thursday, we're gonna do a whole class on different ways to rewire the brain. But today I'm gonna show you just a couple. All right, so we want to keep the brain sharp. Movement is one way of doing it. And so we're gonna do just a fun practice there. And I'm gonna have you put your feet together. And I'm gonna have you open the hands, open the legs. And you guys might be a little close. I know, you guys did sit down with me. All right, so we've got this open and closed. All right, so part of rewiring the brain is challenging the brain. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna switch this up. So the legs are apart, the hands are in. Legs come in, hands go apart. Can you switch it up? How does it feel? So when you were a child, you constantly were learning new skills, creating new neural pathways in the brain. As we become adults, we have these practices that are just natural, and we just do them, and we run through these patterns without having to think.
Now cross your feet.
All right, so I'm gonna pass some balls around. I do need them back because I'll need them for Thursdays, but on Thursday you'll get to take these home. But if you could take a ball and then pass it. That was Dr. White.
Yeah, Dr. White didn't want to work out with us. He didn't. Get out.
So you've got these little balls,
Oh, that's right.
and as you start to hang onto the ball, just toss it from one hand to the other. For those of you that don't have one,
Don't look at Denise.
so you got this ball. So we got. We're gonna keep tossing it, one hand to the other. Dr. White, did you want to share anything?
No, I think on the brain is the next frontiers.
I discovered, right?
We're checking the other end, but not this, not the important part, huh? You know what I mean?
All right, so we've got this ball, you've got it going back and forth. Now close your eyes.
Don't be exceptional.
All right. So notice how you just have to think a little differently, right? Now I'm filling into it. I'm using different parts of my brain. So on the back sheet, you can go and open your eyes, keep the ball going back and forth. On the back sheet, it has a whole list of different things, different activities you can add to sharpen your brain. Some of them are doing puzzles, right? So doing Sudoku, doing crossword puzzles, doing these puzzles. But if you look at the diagram, that's going to strengthen one part of the brain. We need to now strengthen all the parts. So now what we also want to do is to start to do a sport, right? So now we're working on coordination. We want to learn a new skill, maybe playing an instrument, learning a new language, and that's a different part of the brain. So we don't want to rely on only doing puzzles, thinking that puzzles are going to be enough to keep the brain active, because we want to keep the whole brain active, which means we need to engage every part of the brain. All right, so go ahead and set your ball down.
What
Part
about things
of-
like cards, if you're just thinking?
Yeah, so that's great for the part of the brain that is the problem solving, right? But you also want the part of the brain that manages your movement. We also want the part of the brain that does planning. When you do a menu, right, you have to think ahead of time. You have to decide, you have to do numbers. All right, so we got one more activity. And so I want you to visualize that we're going to do a sport. We're going to play baseball. Now, the brain is amazing. You do not have to play baseball for the body to think that you're playing baseball. So I want you to hold your baseball bat and I want you to get ready to swing. And that ball comes and strike that ball. It went way out there. So we're going to run. You got the body moving. And it went way out. We're going to go all the bases. And then at the end, we're going to slide in. All right. Now we're going to switch it. You guys are a switch hitter. Let's go to the other side. You want to practice things on the other side, brushing your teeth, eating, writing. Let's hit that ball. It went just as far. Let's run. And we're sliding in the base. All right. So you got the body moving. You got the heart moving. The cardio is going to move that blood into the brain. That's what's going to keep the brain healthy, right? You got the imagination going. You got things moving. You're doing coordination using both sides of the body. On Thursday, we have another activity that we're doing. It's called a pop-up. I got some right here. There's some back there. On Thursday, we're going to be doing balancing. We're going to be doing all those different hacks. These are skills that maybe you did as a child, right? When you had all of these create neural pathways in the brain. So we're going to be doing a whole class on just activities to strengthen that wiring in the brain. So you're welcome to come back. It's a free activity on Thursday. So
Is it the same time, Denise, 11?
and we have yoga till 11, so probably like 11:15, 11:30, we'll get started. So I have lots of different notes on here, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to pass the torch to Joy, who has some information to share on our brain health also.
Yeah, so my research lends itself a little bit more towards the food that we're eating and how we can adjust our lifestyle with what we put in our mouth and how it affects our brain. So the brain is only 10% of your body weight. You think about that. They say the average brain is about 13 pounds, but it uses approximately 50% of the energy that you're taking in through your nutrition. So the brain's especially prone to damage from free radical impacts, which are those little cells that fragments of cells that go crazy and bounce around and cause a lot of harm because it's such a high fat organ. Most of your brain is fat. And then it's also got a lot of high metabolic activity. So it's attracting all that energy. And so a lot of people who go on drastic diets and cut out major food groups and are not careful about getting the nutrients that they need across the board, one of the very first symptoms you have is brain fog. All of a sudden you walk into a room, you can't remember where you came in there, can't get that word, you know, and it's kind of scary because we are so conscious of Alzheimer's and brain diseases. But that's one of the very first things that, and I'm sure you guys have been hangry where you haven't had a bite to eat and you start getting a headache and getting grumpy, and that's when the brain quits working too. So nutrition is it's one of the organs that it's the most important for. And as scientists study dementia and other inflammatory diseases of the brain, they're finding that cholesterol, once again, is playing a part in the diseases. So you remember a couple months ago, we did a cholesterol presentation, and we talked about the fact that your liver actually produces all the cholesterol that your body needs. If you never ate cholesterol in your diet at all, you would be fine. But unfortunately, with our SAD diet, our standard American diet, we are consuming quite a bit of cholesterol. And they always thought that the brain was safe from this, unlike the rest of our vascular system, but they're finding out that there's an enzyme in our body that turns the cholesterol into an oxidized form of cholesterol, and then it can pass through that brain and blood barrier and get in there and cause a lot of problems in those blood vessels in our brain. And they're starting to say that Alzheimer's is really diabetes type 3, because it's affecting the vascular system up here. And so they're starting to look at how we can, again, people may be genetically predisposed, but our lifestyle is, they say that the bullets in the gun, that's the genetics. Your lifestyle is pulling the trigger or not. So you have a lot of control over how far it's going to go. In autopsies, which unfortunately has been the only way up to now that they could determine if somebody had Alzheimer's, there's 17 different types of dementia. Alzheimer's is only one of them. And usually they would wait until they could do an autopsy, and they could see that all of these cholesterols were clogging up the blood vessels. And in patients that have neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, the elevated levels of those oxidized cholesterols are in the brain. So it's like accompanying those conditions. So there's got to be a connection there. They're also finding that these oxysterols, as they call them, are toxic to our cells, our DNA, our heart, and are possibly mutagenic and cancerogenic. So they're causing a lot of inflammation in the body. And we want to try and cut down on the cholesterol in that way as well. The blood vessels of the brains of these patients showed a buildup of plaques and fats across the board. And so the buildup of brain cholesterol starts earlier in life. It's not just when we get older, but it accumulates over time. And it can cause mild cognitive impairment as early as 20 years before Alzheimer's starts to show up. So it's a long process. It's not something that happens overnight for most people. And in the lab studies performed by researchers, they put actual brain cells in a petri dish, put a couple swabs of these oxidized cholesterols on it, and they could see the inflammation happening. It's like a cause and effect right in front of them. So it's definitely something to look at. So oxidized cholesterol, the one that our body breaks down and allows to go into the brain, is 100 times more toxic than regular cholesterol. And it's found in milk powders, especially protein powders that are made with dairy milk, meat, fish, cheese, and eggs. So primarily your animal products. When I teach the nutrition classes here, I ask people to keep their diet, 20% of their diet to this food group, and have the other 80% be plant-based, whole food. No. Well, you consider milk powders, cheese, it's going to be the dairy products. Some of them are higher than others in this type of cholesterol. And the food highest in oxidized cholesterol is pea. I know, Denise used to. Yeah, so, you know, I just think something in moderation. If you have a particular family background leaning towards these conditions, you might want to cut back on the ghee. I did know when I was doing the research for this that even though a great deal of India is vegetarian and vegan, they have a very high percentage of heart disease. And they use a lot of ghee in their cooking. That could have something to do with it. So just something to think about. And so what do we do to avoid this degeneration of the brain and our cognitive abilities overall? Science once again points to the value of whole foods, plant-based foods. So as Denise said, we're saying a lot of the same message over and over again. It seems like for so many of these diseases, all of which are based on inflammation, our lifestyle and eating more plant-based foods in our diet can help with that. So that means we want to eat more legumes, nuts, and seeds for protein, whole grains that still has the germ and the bran attached to it, lots and lots of colorful fruits and vegetables. And every type of fruit and vegetable that you eat is bringing a different antioxidant to your stomach. So they say that ideally you should eat 30 different types of plant-based foods a week, which that's a lot of salads and fruit salads, but it makes, especially this time of year, it makes for a fun way to eat.
You can make them into a smoothie.
Yeah, I went to the farmer's market. Somebody was telling me to go to the farmer's market and see if you can have some kind of-
Don't you think when you're saying that, to make it not so daunting, because sometimes it is kind of daunting when people are like, oh my gosh, I've gotta get my family to eat salad every day, all these things, and it's, you may want to eat it, but they may not.
Right,
So how do you, like, I'm thinking, like, when you talked about the germ, aren't there, like, there's little tricks, a lot of little tricks, so you can probably sprinkle wheat germ on something that they eat every day, or
ground flax.
yes,
Yes.
flaxseed, there's so many little
Tricks.
intricate tricks versus just thinking this is the only way, or, we talk
Well-
about the Mediterranean diet. That's another one. So, I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, there's a lot of bad things in some of these foods. So how do we counteract that? And how do we keep,
I think again, it comes back to the percentage. So you're concentrating 80% of what you're eating on the whole food plant-based. And the beauty of it is, there's so much variety in the plant world. We are so spoiled when you go into Whole Foods or Sprouts and you look at all the colors and all the variety of fruits and vegetables that we have. There's things that, I haven't eaten a turnip since I was a teenager, and I need to come back around this winter and try turnips again. There's just so many things that you can try that will, bring a different flavor to you. And the other wonderful thing about the plant world is that's where the color is. So we look for color for the antioxidants. You want your red bell pepper versus your green, or your orange, and your purple broccoli versus your regular, when you can. But looking for those colors, when you bring those to kids, it can make it a lot more fun. And there's some ways to bring the color way out, like in beets and, some of the green things, and make it fun because they've got such a colorful thing to eat. And having said that, it is a process. And I have this with a lot of my students here, whose husband, the wife is here and she's on board, but the husband's digging his heels in and he's not too keen about it yet. And so again, we lean into it. You don't cause a fight, you don't do nagging. You just start reintroducing some things that maybe haven't been eaten in the home for a while, or maybe, it's a new way to eat broccoli or a new way to eat asparagus. And you just introduce things a little bit at a time. And the taste buds can change within 2 weeks. If we really stick with this and work on it, if you have a desire to introduce these foods to your diet more, it only takes 2 weeks for the body to start changing. And the first couple of days, it's like my hardest thing was to give up cheese. I've been plant-based completely for 8 years, and there's so many good cheeses from so many different countries. It was really hard. But over the years, I just weaned it out, and I haven't had it, except as a very special treat, maybe once a quarter. And I don't miss it anymore. My body has adjusted, and now even sometimes it tastes too fatty or too oily in my mouth because I'm not used to that animal mouthfeel. So, be kind with yourself. Work your way into it. As you do it, it's good to journal or keep track of what you're eating, because there'll be some things that you're like, yuck, I never want that again. And there'll be other things that you want to introduce into your life on a weekly basis because it's so delicious. So I would say leaning into it. So some of the specific things we can eat, lutein so you've heard of beta carotenes. This is from that family, only instead of being orange and red, it's found in dark green leafy vegetables, especially kale. So we brought a kale salad for you guys today. It's a brain booster salad. It's got blueberries, which we're going to talk about, walnuts, which we're going to talk about, and red onion because it's got the red and purple color, and the kale. So 1/2 cup of kale, again, looking at the plant world, has 50 times more lutein than an egg. And eggs are advertised to being high in this and high in folate and these different things. And actually, if you look to the plant world, it's surprising how many concentrations of the nutrients we have. And then this lutein has been shown in studies to improve our spatial memory. So we can gauge if we're going to hit the side of the garage as we come in or not. Complex attention, problem solving, and reasoning ability, which is good in our relationships. Then we go on to polyphenols. So these are the antioxidants and anthocyanidins, you can say that give blueberries their deep blue color and are also advantageous in fighting brain degeneration. So Denise brought some beautiful fruit from her yard, and she's got some plums in there that are super blue purple. You guys have to grab some of those because you're gonna get that color that you need today in your diet. So lutein and anthocyanidins can actually be observed in the part of the retina in our eye called the macula. So those pigments, your eye doctor can look in there and see those blue and red and purple pigments in the eye right through the retina and see if you're getting enough of these things. They're hoping that this might be a way to marker Alzheimer's, because as I said before, it used to be you had to wait till somebody died and look at their brain. They're thinking that they might be able to do this and actually look in the eye and see how the person is doing with these pigments being present. And it's also going to enhance brain integrity. Again, especially in the area of learning and memory, that's the hippocampus. So in Denise's chart here, it's this golden color of the brain back down here.
This is
part-
beta carotene, is that?
Yeah, it's the carotenoid family. So the beta carotene is the one that has the orange and the yellow and the red. This is a different part of the carotene family that does the purple and the blue and the dark colors. So it helps you coordinate when you move. So we'll be better at our yoga when we eat this way. So other foods research that seem to be advantageous to brain health include Concord grape juice. And yes, this study was funded by Welch. Dr. Greger looked into it. He said,
I'm sure you're saying that stuff.
yeah, well, you get the one that's organic without the sugar, and Dr. Greger had his crew look into the study, and it really was a good scientific study. So that, and the only reason they did juice instead of grape is because they couldn't make a placebo grape that would fool anybody, so they had to do just the juice. And then walnuts. Isn't it funny? They look like a brain and they're really good for our brains. And tea and coffee, they're controversial. Some studies come out and say it's good for us. Some studies come out and say it's not. I would say at this point, with all the conflicting information, moderation. And don't overdo it. And again, journal your intake. And if you are finding that having coffees make you real jittery, or you don't sleep at night, and some people are sensitive. Some people can drink it all the way up to 4 o'clock and be fine. Other people have to stop at noon. So you need to pay attention to what's going on with your body and monitor it and be kind to it so you can get that good sleep that's going to help you. And then it was interesting too, as I was looking through brain health, they suggested that the best essential oil to stimulate the brain is lemon balm. Having said that, I brought one today that's called Peppermint Halo, and I'll pass it around towards the end of the class here. And what you want to do with it is put it here on the temples, not close to the eyes, and then at the bottom of the hairline, and possibly here if you want to get more of it. And it's really good for making you alert. So I'll pass that out. And then, as always, it's nice to get your nutrients from the whole foods, because we've only begun this food science journey. There's so many things, so many phytonutrients in foods that we're not aware of. So if we go in and isolate vitamin B and take it out and take a B pill, we're missing all those things that were in the food. So it's always nice to get your nutrients from the food first. And if you're changing your diet, you're becoming more plant-based, or you're having issues with leaky gut or anything, use the supplements to help you get everything you need for the bodies, because sometimes your body isn't breaking it down and digesting and processing it. So the supplements are super handy for that.
What about that supplement that's getting a lot of press now, a lot of headlines, is the Athletic Greens, where it's the powder and you just mix a drink and they say you get like everything you need?
Again, it's
A lot
so
of people are
easy.
promoting it. Do you know anything more about Athletic Greens?
You know, I think it is remarkable right now, the wellness industry, what has happened with marketing, how people are just making pills and powders out of everything. And I would say, again, if you're traveling and it's hard for you to get the good foods, use something like that to help supplement your system. But on a regular basis at home, throw the stuff in the blender and make a smoothie. You know, make it from the real foods. So part of what we teach during the cooking classes is to do a lot of food preparation. So when you go to the grocery store, you have your groceries delivered, cut up the apples, cut up the celery and the carrots, make everything easy to get to. So in the morning, you can stumble over to the blender and throw in your apples and your ginger and your carrots, or your cucumber and celery and green bell pepper or whatever you want. And it makes it easy. And it really is amazing to me, and I'm sensitive to it now. If my husband goes and buys a jar of juice at the store, which has to be pasteurized legally so that we don't get hurt from it, and I drink it, it just tastes kind of dead. And then when we make our own juice at home and I take a sip of it, it's like my body is just like, see, you can feel the difference. So I would just say try. The colors are great this time of year. Watermelon, mint, strawberry juice, I mean, blueberry, grape, plum juice, I mean, you could, and you know, juicing takes out the fibers, so it's also nice to eat it in the whole form, but this time of year, you can feed your brain beautifully and enjoy doing it.
So one thing that Joy mentioned was that Alzheimer's, cognitive decline, dementia doesn't come on like, okay, so I'm 60 or I'm 70 and I start to see those signs. It actually started to build 10, 15, 20 years ago. Unfortunately, Western medicine only diagnoses it when you have those symptoms. And by then the brain has declined so much, it's really hard to take those steps back. And so it's so important that you start doing these practices now to prevent from getting that far, because we don't want that diagnosis. And so Joy is here. Joy is our plant-based cooking instructor. She does plant-based education. She's going to help you if you have any questions in that area. There's so much you can do. So one of the things we talked about was movement. But when you look at, okay, so how come I can't think of what it stands for? The World Health Organization has diagnosed or has stated that EMF is connected to cancer. And now they're connecting it to childhood leukemia. It's connected to disorganization. So if you want help looking at how do you decrease these toxins, how do you find ways to reduce EMFs in your life, we're here to help with that. Dental infections have been related to increased Alzheimer's. So there's lots of different paths you can take when you're looking at finding that healthy brain. They're also finding that scars, all of us have a scar, our belly button is a scar, but if you have a scar in your body, that's preventing a flow of energy through your body. And so maybe that's something you want to look at, is how do you activate that tissue inside there and soften it so that the body's communicating more fluently. They found that 65% of individuals that are affected by a health concern such as cognitive decline have a emotional trauma related to it. So maybe we need to go back and look at those traumas that we've experienced. So Vessel Health is here to help support you on whatever that path looks like for you. We have some great supplements. I put several of the supplements out that are related to brain health. Joy is here to help with that plant-based cooking, nutrition classes, yoga flow. We have exercise classes. We're just here to help you be healthy. And if you have any questions about what you can do to keep that brain young, we're here to help support you with that. Now, Sally is our coordinator of development. She also has strong connections out in the community. So if we don't have the answer for you, maybe there's someone in the community that does. And Sally has those connections. And so she can help connect you with companies out there, businesses out there that are reputable, that are friendly, that work with us.
Yeah, so don't ever hesitate. You can ask me. My cards are up front. I'll happily give you a card today if you want to follow up. But most everybody will.
Are there any questions? There's a lot of information that we shared, and so happy that you guys were.
You got me really freaked out about aluminum foil, because I live in aluminum foil. It keeps freezer burn out of
No, I
everything
think
in the
that's an
freezer.
outgas, right?
Does it leach into the food?
It
Or?
leaches into the food if there's anything touching it, if you're heating. And so even if you like put hot food in and it sweats and then that moisture
That would
comes
get it.
back in.
So if you put saran wrap on something and then covered it with
Please don't
foil.
put plastic in there either.
Yeah.
Glass is the best. Glass is the best, but there's also things you could do. Cilantro, parsley, there's ways that you can detox the body. My goal is to detox the body and not reintroduce new metals into it. But yeah.
So if you make a pie or a cake and you cover it with foil, plastic and foil, that's terrible.
It's not the best.
It's not
We're not gonna say
Yeah,
terrible,
let's just cook it.
but it's steamy. And so just like when you get a hot coffee and you have that plastic lid and the steam comes up
But
and then it.
she's talking about after the pie cools, you.
Oh, no, it's when it's cold and I'm putting it in the freezer.
If it's cold, it's not gonna out.
I would prefer not to.
You wouldn't put it in the freezer.
So there
With
are,
the
you're
foil.
right, I've made a point of really being careful with plastic. I was more fearful of plastic and certain metals, of course, cooking with more than.
Yes,
Yeah.
the heat and the.
Yeah, so
irons.
cooking with certain, with.
Iron.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Using, whether you're using your iron skillets or if you're using aluminum pans, definitely want to stay away from aluminum and that kind of stuff. But plastic was like the big one, right? When you heard about the, BPA and all the different things, what's good, what's not, levels and all the stuff, it's really science-y.
Pirates.
But I think, for me, what I've done, and this, she might scold me, but I have these great, they say they're safe, they're an enamel coating on metal.
The green pans.
Yeah, well, they're actually, no, they're for storage.
Okay, yeah.
And then and then they have a lid and you can put them in the fridge, you can put them in the freezer, whatever you wanna do, but there's no plastic involved whatsoever.
Cool. So
Yeah.
the funny part is what's good for us, not using the plastic and not using the foil is also good for our environment. Because every time we go and buy another roll of plastic, another roll of foil, and I'm now rinsing my plastic bags and rinsing my husband thinks I've lost it, but I don't want to use too much. The plastic, a lot of it is not truly getting recycled, and there's good movies
Oh, yeah,
about this
that's
too. And so there's a plastic mass out in the Atlantic Ocean the size of Texas. I mean, can you imagine that much plastic just floating around out there? So if we can just try and use less, use more enamel, use more glass. The good thing is, once you buy it, you don't have to keep buying it, like you have to keep buying plastic bags.
Oh, that reminds me, and because I didn't bring some stuff and I was at a friend's, took a dish to a party, that kind of thing, and I was like, oh shoot, I forgot to bring something because it didn't get all finished. And so I left some with her, but when I took the pan home, I stopped at one of those vitamin cottage maybe on the way home, and they have those really cool things that you can wrap on your,
Yes.
Yeah.
Wax.
yeah, they're wax.
Yeah.
Wax. They're
Reusable.
different, yeah.
They're super cool.
Yeah.
So I bought the whole pack. I thought, oh shoot, I could use this, and they're come in different sizes. You might look at those.
So you heard, there's a whole list of ways that we can find help. If foil is your, you
Oh,
just
it's
find,
also plastic, so.
you just find something else, right? And so if you are a high risk, it might be something that you're looking at.
We've all been there.
Come on, you're 80, don't
If
worry
it
about it.
comes down to-
Any other questions for Sally?
I want to ask about, when you were talking about the,
Plastic bags too.
oh my goodness, fine, I don't have to say what it was, about the, foods, but the list of different things, and then you mentioned about stress and the things that we should probably be more aware of. You talked about caffeine and sleep and all those kinds of things. I guess my biggest thing is that I think about cortisol. I'm afraid of cortisol. Cause after I read what it does.
Cortisol is a
Oh, you
process
talk about
that's,
glucose.
but glucose, cortisol, all of this the body makes.
Hormones.
It's just that we are just out of balance, and so cortisol's on like all the time. We
Yes.
eat so much processed foods that we're spiking all the time, and it's just hard on our body. It
Right.
oxidates it. It's very stressful. You've heard about adrenal fatigue.
Yes.
The body was never meant to be on all the time.
Right.
The lights, the EMF, the smells, the everything. It's just exciting us like in an agitating way. And
It does
so,
look like that.
Mhm.
I feel it. It's like we're all supposed to be on all the time and everybody's supposed to be shooting it, from all cylinders constantly, the phone's ringing and everything. Everybody wants you to multitask. I'm like, oh my God.
and you're told that this behavior, like you walk into a room and you don't remember, it's not normal. That should not be happening. You can do a test, you can read a page, so you pick up your thing. If you are exhausted after 2 pages, that is brain fatigue. That means that you've already started the decline. If you get in your car and you drive and after 2 hours you're feeling fatigued, that's brain fatigue. That means the brain is not as healthy. So there's certain things that you can start to detect. If you make a plan I'm gonna make my list, I go to the store and I can't remember what I wrote on it. That should not be happening, right? These are all signs that we've been told, oh, that's his age. But it's not true. And so recognizing that means, okay, it's the tap on the shoulder. Right? And we should be listening, because pretty soon you're gonna start hearing the yelling because we didn't pay attention. And so,
And so many people that are doing this afraid of carb type of eating program where they're trying to cut out potatoes and rice and bread and anything that's a carb. They're experiencing these things that she's describing, because that's the first thing it does. Your brain is the primary eater of glucose in their whole system. So if you're depriving the brain of glucose, which is what carbs turn into in your body, that's what's happening in the brain. And you're not thinking 100%.
I'm gonna leave this up here because I thought it was pretty interesting because of some of the things that you talked about, but there's a couple others, and this one I thought was really interesting. You know, you talked about writing in a journal. That's a big one. You don't realize how.
because you're thinking on one side and you're writing using the other
Right.
side. So both sides of the brains are firing together.
Right, and I was actually telling my brother that this was something I thought it would be really good for him because he had suffered a stroke. So I think anytime you're telling the brain and the extremity, opposite extremity to get together and do something, it's gonna be an exercise that'll benefit, right?
And that also takes it out of your brain. So
Yes,
if you're worried about something, if you journal about it, it helps take it out and then you can relax. And
yes, so
just
that's
that-
why I do it, because it does take it out, that's why I write lists, that's all. But indulging in hobbies is another one. And it doesn't matter what that hobby is, whatever it is you like, nobody has to be critical of that, who cares, people. That's the other thing, like, if you're not, the person who wants to go garden all day long, the heat, I understand. I'm out there and it's kind of crazy, I think I get sometimes overheated, but there are lots of things that we don't know, that are out there that we should maybe, if there's you have an interest, why not? And the other one was, this one was a big one, I thought, for people to kind of think about. Don't lead with fear. Putting fear first can be distracting. It allows us to make inappropriate, impulsive decisions we wouldn't make otherwise, right? Being mindful, taking deep breaths, taking part in all of those above things and things that they've talked about will help you lead in with positivity. But I see this in people I know. Right now, what's going on with California, I see it in people. They're like, oh, they were fearing it before it even hit. Rightfully so, but yet almost to the point where it was like over the top already.
And mobilizing.
Yeah, so there's a lot
For
of that.
years, I've been saying that fear leads to panic and panic kills.
Well, you're right on,
You're on-
Bob.
right
I've been
on.
saying that for years.
Well, keep it up.
Because we did
somebody's
work that
listening.
would kill you.
Yeah, so fear, if you're leading with fear, you're kind of already putting yourself at some sort of risk.
Terrible waste of energy.
It's a terrible waste of energy, yeah, I agree.
Don't worry about the
Great.
heat's gonna kill us first. Don't worry about what you do, because the heat's gonna kill us all first.
Thing is, none of us are gonna make it out of here alive.
Yeah, that's right.
True, yeah, climate change is another subject altogether.
I want to share with you guys, Janine brought this paper in today. She got it at Tin Can Alley, and I'm gonna bring more of them in. But it's kind of a plant-based issue this time. And there's a place up on Eubank called the Albuquerque Collective, and they have a bunch of food trucks on special events, like on a Saturday night. You can go eat from 3 or 4 food trucks. They've got music, they've got artisans, they've got all the food sanctuaries with a booth there. Some of them have their pigs, which is really fun. And then it
Yeah.
also has some advertisements for some of the local restaurants that carry a lot of plant-based things, like Annapurna is one, La Salida Mexican restaurant. There's just a lot of good resources. Talks about the farmers markets. If you're trying to get more of those plants in your diet, this is a good resource. I'll have more of these here tomorrow. Yes.
Those are great.
Yes.
I pick one up every time I see it, and I was gonna bring mine, and I'm glad you brought it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was very cool.
Wait, did you have another question? Chris? I thought you had to.
General comment about what I'm finding out with melatonin, finding people in my life and working with a specialist. A lot of people take melatonin and they take it all the time, and it's a hormone that our body makes, and I'm finding these this is a brother-in-law, all these personal stories where people on 5, 8, 10 milligrams of melatonin, and it's really messing up their mind, so like.
Yeah.
The
If
body
you don't-
does it naturally, just
Yeah.
stand outside in the
Yes.
morning and it will kick in the evening. When you substitute a hormone, then your body says, oh, I don't need to make it anymore. And then it won't, right? So it's better to train your body to do that on its own, so. Thank you. All right, so we're here to help support you. I shared in my Sit Strong this morning, when my dad passed, he had a cognitive decline, he had dementia, and it was horrible to live through that. And so my goal has always been to help prevent anybody else from having to go through that. So whenever you're in my class, anyone that's done Sit Strong, we know we always are doing these fun little activities to help keep the brain sharp. And so Thursday, please come back, because we're gonna be doing a lot of those fun activities to get that brain firing. So, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for being here. I do need the ball for Thursday, so if you want to put your balls back. And then help yourself to the delicious salad, to the fresh fruit. The cabbage was fermented a couple months ago. Fermentation is a great way to extract nutrients from foods. And so you can enjoy some fermented cabbage.
Denise made that right in class as we were talking about it.
It was fun.
So, yeah.
I don't remember what class that was. I was like, it might have been inflammation. I have to think it was inflammation.
I think we should. Yeah, this is something that I have to vote on.
Yeah, let me stop recording.